But first tonight, former Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews has always been Beijing's pathetic puppet. From the Belt and Road Initiative deal he did with China, which was designed to expand Beijing's power across the world, to his multiple secretive visits there while leader of the state, where he met with Chinese officials, and we never really found out why. And you'll recall this infamous photo in Tiananmen Square, the same place where China murdered hundreds of students in the 80s during the massacre. But even out of office, Dan Andrews remains China's marionette, the best Australian friend Beijing has ever had. He even rivals Anthony Albanese, and that is saying something. But today, the true extent of his love affair with the communist dictatorship was laid out for the world to see, and it is very concerning. Dan Andrews was a guest of honour at China's military parade in Beijing as part of its Victory Day celebrations. But this photo should worry all of us. Dan Andrews joined world leaders and dictators on the red carpet ahead of the event. Here he is posing for a class photo of sorts with the axis of evil: Communist leader Xi Jinping, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. And there's Dan Andrews, a couple of spots behind Kim Jong-un, for goodness sake. I mean, this is truly inconceivable and a complete and utter embarrassment to Australia. This is exactly the type of propaganda China wants. And not to mention a complete slap in the face to Victorians who are still struggling years on from Dan Andrews' government's decisions like the record COVID lockdown and suppression of freedoms. And now the former Premier is smiling with leaders of regimes who suppress freedoms on a daily basis. Dan Andrews, hang your head in shame. But that's just the issue, isn't it? He's never had any shame, not on anything, even China.
The trip was not about me. And again, with respect, it was not about you. It was about the future of Victoria.
Oh, it was never about Victoria. It was always about Dan Andrews. Now, on the world stage today, China showed off its military might. Now, this was a deliberate tactic by China to show off its latest weapons to the world, all of its arsenal in a show of might against the West that includes us and our number one ally, the United States. China unveiled its robot wolves, a contingent of four-legged robots capable of launching precision strikes against targets, along with laser weapons, nuclear ballistic missiles and giant underwater drones, all clearly designed to destroy the West's military arsenal. And of course, this useless fool, Dan Andrews, was there to lap it up in the audience, probably smiling, clapping and waving along like a trained seal. And boy, he made quite an entrance. Have a look.
And a decade ago, on September 3rd, it was also here where Chinese President Xi Jinping and his wife, Madame Peng Liyuan, welcomed.
Yep, that was Dan Andrews again, happily shaking hands with the leader of a communist regime which has sent spy ships our way, conducted live fire drills off our coast, imposed punitive tariffs and has bullied us militarily and economically. Yet the Prime Minister did not seem fussed by it.
What do you think of Dan Andrews joining a line of people greeting President Xi at this parade, which includes Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un?
Well,
do you like that Dan Andrews and Bob Carr are there?
He's not meeting them.
Really? He's not meeting them? So, all right, solves it all, doesn't it? I mean, what is this Prime Minister so scared of? It was only in June Anthony Albanese and Dan Andrews had lunch together in Melbourne. It's not like the pair aren't in touch. So why did the Prime Minister not urge him not to go? The coalition pushed the Prime Minister on it in question time.
Will the Prime Minister condemn his close personal friend, Daniel Andrews, attending the Chinese Communist Party military parade alongside the presidents of Russia, North Korea and Iran?
I'm responsible for the Australian government. The Australian government did have a representative there, and the Australian government did have a representative 10 years ago.
Well, the China of 10 years ago is not the China of today. The China of today has hurt Australia in more ways than one. But once again, the Prime Minister is just so scared of upsetting Xi Jinping. I mean, remember his own trip in July.
Did the President express any objection to your plans about bringing the Port of Darwin back into Australian hands, or any potential response that China might take to that?
No, it wasn't raised. There was no breach of international law by China, but that we were concerned about the notice and the way that it happened, including the live fire exercises.
Nothing to see here, as always. And compare that with former Queensland Labor Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk today when asked about Dan Andrews' visit.
There's a difference between trade and going along to a military parade. So if it was me, it'd be a definitely no. I would not be attending that. It just is the next level. It's a bridge too far.
Yeah, that it is. It's quite frankly a disgrace. And let's not forget, while Dan Andrews went on his many trips over there as Premier, my colleague here at Sky News, Chung Lei, was rotting in a Chinese prison, forcing her family to beg for Andrews to even raise her case. He didn't. He said at the time it was simply a matter for the federal government. A Melbourne woman was in jail and the then Premier didn't even think to raise it? Now, former Foreign Minister Bob Carr is also in China and had said he would attend the event, but changed his mind at the 11th hour, posting on social media the sounds of marching bands from over the walls as I'm enjoying tea with Southeast Asian and Beijing-based European diplomats, exploring impact of Trump policy, erraticism on the region and ideas on Australia's role. Well, it's a far cry from his op-ed in 9 newspapers the day before, where he boasted about attending the parade, saying, with a father who had served in the Pacific and a mother who was in the army along with my aunt and 2 uncles, I learnt as a kid about the Chinese theatre of war. It's why I accepted an invitation from the Chinese Consul General to attend the 80th celebration of their victory. But that was not why China put on its parade today. It did so to intimidate its allies. And perhaps Albo's office put in a last-minute call to Bob Carr begging him not to go. I don't know, but it certainly is a stunning backflip. And it makes it even worse for Dan Andrews, still taking cues from Beijing, a dictatorship that has presided over human rights abuses and continues to intimidate the West, including us. This is fantastic propaganda for China and spurs them on to keep doing what they're doing, bullying the world. Even the Australian ambassador refused the invite to the parade. Dictator Dan is still living up to his namesake. A leopard never changes its spots.